Let me cover a little bit of the Digital Web 2.0 Learning Environment project. The idea behind this is that we are transforming in some way the traditional letter home to parents and guardians, the traditional welcome back to school, or even emails that inform parents or guardians or students about what to expect in the next couple of weeks. We still have to keep in mind particular ideas in what we might traditionally call desktop publishing. So desktop publishing is where we used to use Microsoft Word and other programs to publish brochures, pamphlets, mini posters, informational graphic texts that would go home in a letter using different types of fonts and colors and arrangements and styles and images, graphs and charts. What we hope to do with the Digital Web 2.0 project is you take what we've done up until this point, building infographics, looking at how images and information can be displayed and conveyed. Think about the tools themselves. What kind of an environment are you going to have in your 21st century classroom, and how do you convey that 21st century learning environment to your parents, guardians, students, or whomever needs to know? That is what is at the heart of this assignment. So before you do anything, you have to think about your philosophical approach. What is good teaching and what is good learning? And you may even have to think about, and should be thinking about, what is worth knowing in your classroom. How are students going to learn? How are you going to teach? And make sure you're considering technology there. Now, instead of typing all of that information out, utilize the Digital Web 2.0 tools and utilize all of the capabilities and all of the affordances that they offer. Does it allow for video? Does it allow for images? Go take your own images. Don't go take pictures. Find a classroom that you believe is what you expect yours to be. Find representations of you in the classroom. Have somebody help you. Have somebody take your picture. This should be something that you're thinking about using down the line in the future. Express what you believe good teaching is in the classroom, and you should express what you believe good learning is in your classroom. Find a way to visually, digitally represent that with word and images and pictures and movies. Try to minimize the amount of text you use. Try to cut back on how much you're just typing out. If I wanted you to type this out, I would ask for a paper. This is something else. When it comes to the planning, I need to see evidence that you actually put effort into producing this and that you didn't just slap it together with duct tape and glue. I need to see a storyboard or a SketchUp or some kind of visual representation that you planned it before you made it. That's essential. In that planning document, you should also identify what the purpose is and then why you selected the tools that you selected. Answer those questions in a narrative form. If you need some specifics, use size 12 font, Times New Roman, and make sure you identify everything you're thinking. Show a depth of thought. Be very explicit and explain everything. Please do not assume I know what you're talking about or what you mean. Make sure you write a full explanation that showcases how you planned for this project and how you planned to make and then actually made the product. The project minimums are pretty simple. Does everything come together the way it's supposed to? Does everything look and feel like an organic whole? Is it a cohesive project that you took time to create, and then is it ready to be used in a situation? You have text, you have audio, you have visuals, you have everything that is required pulled all together, as well as using the digital tool to its greatest capacity. If you use Prezi and all you do in your Prezi is have a selection of paragraphs that you type out, that's not really using the abilities that Prezi gives you. Prezi can display video, and Prezi, the thing about Prezi is it shows big picture and little picture. And so the idea of motion that Prezi gives you It's a conceptual mapping tool. So if your classroom's here, you can actually zoom in and out of different parts of your classroom to investigate what's going on. So if you had an image of your classroom, parents could click along, guardians could click along, and students could follow that path and go in and out of what your classroom is or what your unit is going to be. Design principles. PARC. Proximity, alignment, repetition, and contrast. These are very simple. Basically, does your product look like it's professional, or does it look like it was thrown together by somebody that doesn't care? So again, to be a little more specific, proximity, alignment, repetition, and contrast. Now these are all interconnected, and we will rarely use any one item alone, but we separate them so that we can understand their use as we design our Digital Web 2.0 tool projects. Proximity is straightforward how you're grouping related items together. And so if you're talking about activities, or you're talking about conversations, or you're talking about desks, or you're talking about students, are all of these items grouped together into cohesive areas in your presentation? Are you giving instant visual clues as to what people will learn about if they zoom in on a particular section? Is this area about technology? Is this area about content? Is this area about pedagogy? And so you're grouping things together, keeping them in close proximity to other related items. A in PARC is alignment. The way you place things and where you place things in your Digital Web 2.0 expression of your learning environment are not arbitrary. You should be making invisible alignment lines in your head. Map a grid out onto what it is you're building to express your learning environment, and think about the visual connections that are being made. This will strengthen and give it a more cohesive overall feel when you're aligning items in a pleasing way that provides for flow and logic in how people consume the information. Does it make sense where you're putting things and how they are arranged? Repetition, 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 repetition. Are you repeating aspects of the design throughout the entire product? What kind of font are you using? Are you using the same font in the same way in different areas? Are you using the same kind of bullets to represent the different ideas you're trying to express? How is your color being used? Are you using particular design elements like circles or squares or imagery that you've created? Are you keeping things in a similar idea all the way through? Are you formatting the experience for the reader, for the viewer, for the student, the parent, the guardian? Are they able to make some visual sense of what they're looking at because you're repeating the same design aspects throughout? You're not changing it up for the sake of changing it up, the same way we don't use technology for the sake of technology. We want to have some sense of repetition to keep it in some sort of a continuous consumption of what we're learning. Lastly is contrast. And so as you can see, you want to contrast colors and size. You can play around with the fonts, and you can play around with the design elements to set them apart from each other. So don't have so much repetition and continuity that things all look like they're the same. Use it wisely. Differentiate the things that you're trying to present. Use size and color and script to set things apart as well. But don't overdo it. One more time for everybody in the back and in the front and then in the middle. PARC, proximity, alignment, repetition, and contrast. Grouping things together, using some invisible lines to maintain some continuity and visual connections. Repeat aspects of the design throughout the entire piece, and use that contrasting color and size to set things apart when you need them to be set apart. And lastly is the reflection. And the reflection is a chance for you to think about the use of Web 2.0 tools to convey information. How is this different, or how is this an enhancement or an improvement upon simply sending a letter home? What are the affordances that you came to find as you created your digital Web 2.0 desktop publishing artifact? And then I want you to consider its use in the classroom. How could you have students do something just like this? Where in your content would it make sense for students to communicate information in this way? How could you implement this idea in your classroom? And so you have the planning where you tell me about and you show me how you came to make what you made. Why did you select a tool? Why did you choose that content? Why did you choose all of your choices? Why did you make all your choices? And then you've got your project minimums. Are you actually using text and audio and movies and visual? And are you using a digital Web 2.0 tool? Are you putting these things together? Did you make something? And then you have the design principles. Is it professional? Does it flow? Can somebody read that and know what's going on? And I think you've all probably experienced before somebody that put together a PowerPoint slide where it looks like chaos erupted and you just have no idea what's going on. Things are disjointed, they're out of whack. The design principles help provide a nice, crisp, clean flow of the information jumping off of the screen. And then lastly, your reflection. You have to reflect and you do have to do a write-up, or could you actually do a video recording for the reflection and submit that to me? If you have any questions, please email me, ssubrewer@gmail.com, and I will try my best to answer more in depth and specific to what you need. Thank you, everybody.